Breaking news. So it's been revealed that Grok Build, the CLI tool that XAI, or whatever they're calling it now, SpaceX AI, had shipped in order to allow developers to use their Grok models, turns out to have some features in it that some might classify as malware. So, what was going on? Let's talk all about this. So, one of the reasons why I really wanted to create this video was I created a video earlier this week, last week, that I was basically talking up Grok 4.5 and its ability to code things. And so I was a personal user of Grok Build using the CLI tool, and I thought that it was pretty good. Something that was what I like to call a terminal capture tool, where it basically takes over your terminal visually on the GUI side of things and basically provides a full experience there. And it's not something that I was going to expect took data beyond what was normally expected. So understand, and I'm not naive, that if I, have a conversation and use ChatGPT, Codex, or Claude, that any data that I'm providing back and forth can be used for training purposes, right? And they say that there's like a slash feedback for Claude Code that can provide explicit feedback, but presumably those would provide a little bit more data. But what has been found here is that Grok Build has been uploading people's entire code bases, right? Stuff that's not even within the conversation, uh, up onto a Google Cloud storage, like basically just putting it up into an S3 bucket. And here, this user, Peter Dedenne, I'm sorry for mispronouncing his last name. He basically noted something pretty early on, that there appeared to be a global kill switch on the API side, on the server side, that had a Boolean value here: disable code base upload, which automatically should send chills for anybody who's security conscious. Like, why is there even a flag? First of all, if you're going to do something like this, maybe name it something else. If you're going to do something nefarious, this is a little bit too on the nose, right? But the fact that this is just something that can be flipped on and flipped off, right? And they did some research with AI tools, Codex and Anthropic, found basically 8 private repos of this developer was fully uploaded by Grok. And so anybody who's using Grok Build by this Twitter user here was basically should probably check on this. And we have an account here, who has done a lot of reputable cybersecurity work in the past, based off of what I've seen. But do take this information with a grain of salt. Other independent security researchers I've seen on Twitter, though, this is just like truth by aggregation, but stuff that I've been able to verify, and I'll show in a second. That basically was saying that XAI's Grok Build CLI was uploading entire Git repositories to a Google Cloud bucket. So basically, your private code bases and unredacted secrets, your environment.local, stuff that you're not putting in Vercel even, and Vercel just had the other day told everyone to rotate their keys out of an abundance of caution because they were storing things unencrypted. Well, most developers on local development aren't encrypting local keys, and for a lot of coding models nowadays, GPT and Claude, they'll basically say, hey, like, I don't want to touch, environment.local. Don't even touch that within the conversation, right? And they'll generally flag that and ask for explicit permission. And by security conventions, you shouldn't be including those within AI conversations, right? But as it turns out here, within a 12 gigabyte test repo, 5.1 gigabytes flew out the door when the actual coding task just needed 129 kilobytes worth of data. So obviously there's a huge discrepancy there, and that basically Grok was just hoovering up a bunch of extra data. And as notes here, there was a hidden flag, right? That disable code base upload to be true. That's the hidden flag that's being discussed here. And basically, it was sort of a according to XAI and some of the conversations that was happening on Twitter, right, that there was a slash privacy option that someone could opt into. It wasn't by default that they were taking all of your data. By default, they were just taking everything, including your unencrypted environment variables, and you know you had to opt in to not sharing your data, right? And it got even a little bit messier because there were employees of XAI basically saying, right, and even being very defensive, saying that we weren't doing that. This guy Andrew Milnick was saying that XDR was on by default, but you can see even within their documentation it says here XDR, which is zero data retention, is only available to enterprise accounts. So either they're lying, there's a little bit of cover your ass going on here. We have no idea. There's no transparency involved in this. And so really, even though I made a video, kind of talking up and praising Grok 4.5, it's just impossible to be able to trust XAI when they do something like this, right? And that they're pulling all of your data by default, like not even any of the other frontier labs, as of this moment are doing it. And if they do, I'm willing to call them out as well. Even though I love using their tools, this is unacceptable. And if I'm pulling real quick here, um, this is my uh, environment here. If I just did this grep here, you would basically see like what is being pulled, right? And this is all of the information that's being pulled. If you can see the raw bytes here that's being pulled, it's rather large, right? In 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, like billions of bytes, right? So that's gigabytes worth that it's basically pulling down through each of these repo state uploads, and they're all about the same, right? Without any different variations. So, what are they pulling down here, right? It's all from particular code bases that I was running, and thankfully, I was just running it on joke projects, right? The benchmark tests, which isn't too big of a deal, but every single time it's pulling lots of data, 1 point something gigs, which like very surprising that a code base could even get that large, right? For something that was just build a simple, Silverstone website or website. So I'm not 100% sure. Like, what is this before code base tar.gz, right? Like these aren't just basic content. This is it pulling a lot of stuff, and it's really hard to tell what these files are, right? And according to these independent researchers and concerned developers, right, these are entire code bases that they're just hoovering up, right? Just vacuuming, taking all the data, right? And thankfully, I didn't have any environment variables. Like if I had a Neon database set up, it would have been taken. If I had a Stripe account in a code base that I had provided local credentials to, just taken along, everything, right? And it's sitting somewhere on some random Google Cloud bucket, right? So obviously, very bad situation here. Um, some would even consider this malware because you're basically downloading spyware onto your computer. It's taking up stuff that you never gave permission, or at least, you know, wasn't aware of giving permission for these particular things. Now, this has just ruined completely the trust that I personally have in XAI. I'm going to probably, by the time I upload this, unlist my video for Grok 4. Actually, I should include it because it shows that I'm not biased against XAI, right? That I'm willing to praise the model, but this scummy practice is not something that should be allowed. I would also say that I think that for a lot of enterprises, they should be incredibly worried. I think that based off of these practices that XAI are doing and the fact that they've bought Cursor, and that Cursor is being used by a lot of enterprises, I think that a lot of enterprises should be incredibly worried now with the new stewardship that is in charge of, these tools that have intimate access to your code base, that you should be incredibly concerned. You never know when flags like this might be added, when flags might be flipped, and they're going to be collecting all your data and then turned it off. Oh, we weren't doing anything. We swear, right? It's not in our code base anymore, so on and so forth. It's just completely disingenuous, and their response was quite underwhelming. saying that, oh, you should just opt into privacy as opposed to turning it on by default in something that is critical as code bases, where things like your payment keys, environment variables, secrets, personal identifying data, PII, all that type of stuff, right, could be unencrypted on local devices because you don't ever expect for someone to be able to gain access to that, right? And so, really, I think this is an incredibly disappointing moment for XAI when they were coming off of releasing a pretty good model, right? Something that was highly competitive against 5.5 GPT and Opus 4.8, right? This is their moment, and they've completely fallen on their face. And really, I'm going to be uninstalling Grok Build. The XAI team is, it's one strike and done. This is beyond the pale, right? For uh, you know, from a secure cybersecurity perspective, from a trust perspective, no, there's just nothing, right, that they could possibly do because there's I'm really expecting them not to go like full open. This is what was in each of the individual code bases. They probably can't, right? Show like, oh, this is what the data was actually being pulled because inadvertently they're going to release people's code base structures, environment variables, all that type of stuff if they went to the transparency that is required. So they dug this hole. They're in it now. And yeah, I would highly recommend everyone get rid of Grok Build at the very least. There's no saving it. It's gone. And I would take a really hard look at Cursor as well. I really am sad about that. I started working in, agentic coding using Cursor, and now that it's under new management, new ownership with XAI, you know, you can't trust it. So it's time to move on. And unfortunately, I really don't like doing this stuff, but from a PSA perspective, and I just felt like I needed to chime in because I was recommending Grok Build beforehand with Grok 4.5, that we just gotta be safer than sorry here, and the level of you know disgusting behavior by this really can't go, um, undiscussed, right? So, thank you so much for watching. Provide down in the comments what you think about this situation. I think that for a lot of these, I really don't want to do videos like this, but I think that this one was important enough for me to discuss. So, thanks for watching. Until next time.